Hey good people, this is your N.I. Dom back with another YouTube reflection, and this is a personal journal for contemplative people looking to think, grow, and have impact in the world. So just took in some YouTube content, roughly titled Black Conservatives Debate Black Liberals About American Politics. It's about a 30-minute conversation, and I just finished listening to it, and I thought I'd come and hit the record button to just do some initial meaning making. And I say initial meaning making because this is really something I need to process via a longer form reflection. But because my podcast as the long form reflection is dedicated more to self-actualization and personality theory, I just have never dedicated a whole episode to blackness. Now, that's podcast number 2. I do have podcast number 1 where I deal with issues around social change and power. And so themes around race and class come up frequently. So it's not that I'm neglecting that in my overall life. It's just my podcast number 2 around self-actualization and personality theory. It has a very specific focus. So in saying all of that, I'm going to try to do a short, just a short reaction to that content. And then I'm going to give myself permission. I hope you guys will give me a little grace to come back and unpack more, to get more detail, because I'm pretty sure I'm going to miss a lot of detail because I only have 13 minutes remaining, okay? If you're new to this project or to me, this is a personal journal where I process my inner and my outer worlds. I do so by using personality theory, the 2 theories that I use the most are Myers-Briggs and the Enneagram. Pushing those 2 systems together, I identify as an INTJ8. Also identify as an African-American woman from a lower socioeconomic background and from intergenerational trauma. I'm a trained and practicing social scientist and educator of about 30 years, half of that time in leadership. Politically, I lean into tenets of critical race feminism, which basically means I have an intellectual sensitivity to social constructs of power such as race, class, gender, sexuality, to name a few. This project is unedited and is unscripted. To know more about it or me, feel free to go to my website at yournidom.wordpress.com. So if you notice, I just gave all of my disclaimers. I don't usually do that on the YouTube podcast, reflections. I do it on my long form reflections, but because so much of the content I just took in from these black conservatives and black liberals relate to those identities, those disclaimers, I just wanted to give the fullness. So, oh my God, where do I start? Okay. Oh my God, there's so much to say. So I'm not going to talk in any order. I'm just going to vomit, y'all. And I'm pretty sure some of y'all come at me. One of the things that struck me was stylistically, what does it mean to sit in a space and agree and disagree? And so there were high pockets of people talking at the same time, talking over each other. And it was so interesting that the very people who talked about being an individual and not being a part of a monolith were the people that were stylistically showing up in the way that I have experienced the black collective. Not all black people, but when I'm in black spaces, stylistically, it looks a certain way. Now, I don't have any research to back that up. It could just be my experiences. I'm not here to debate that. But that was just something that struck me, stylistically, people talking at the same time, talking over each other, cutting each other off. I didn't see a lot of curiosity, openness, affirmation. And so, which would kind of make sense if I'm understanding those who identify as black conservatives, because conservatism, as I understand it, can promote competition, individualism. And so in a space like that, they weren't there to be harmonious. They weren't there to be a collective. They were there to make their point as an individual. And so there was definitely a contest of space, but that led to a lot of overlap. It was like a traffic jam. There were many pockets where I'm like, wait a minute, I don't understand what anybody is saying right now. And I was surprised, which I thought the facilitator did a great job, but I was surprised that he didn't stop and go, wait a minute. I'm surprised he didn't do it more. And maybe, I don't know what the rules were before the conversation started, and I haven't listened to the full, I guess there's a longer version of this conversation. So anyway, that was one thing that struck me, is the style of the conversation. Speaking of style, I was also struck with how much space the men took up in the conversation. Towards the end, the women kind of came through, but generally, those men, like if we went, I would be curious if someone scientifically went through minute by minute and tracked who had more airtime, male or female. Now, there was one black woman with the braids. The ornaments in her hair was really pretty. One I disagree with, like about 80% of what she said. Me to date disagree with 80% of what she said. However, I was struck because I think a younger version of me would have been more in agreement with her. Not stylistically, like I just, and then again, I know I'm about to do, if somebody calls me on this would be fair. I would love to be able to defend myself, but it would still be a fair critique. That we get, black women get hit, we get tone police, right? So, I was just mindful, like, when I'm saying stylistically, I'm like, is there tone policing happening? And, man, that's something I want to just linger here. I would love to linger here and flush that out on both sides of that, because I can see both sides of the argument. But anyway, I don't think stylistically the younger version of me would have connected to her, but the younger version of me would have connected to a lot of the substance of being competitive, of being not a victim, of not wanting any government handouts, no social handouts, a moral, having like being grounded in a particular type of morality, right? And so, like the substance of what she said, I think a younger version of me would have connected to her, and that's just not where I am anymore. But I brought her up because I think she did a really good job of, like, no, you're not going to overtalk me. I think she did a really good job of making herself present. And I thought she talked over quite a few people, but hell, if other people were doing dirt, you get in where you fit in. And so that's interesting. And maybe because she's on the more conservative, competitive, individual side, maybe that gave her greater comfort to kind of jump in and cut off. And I thought about some of the other people, particularly the black women who were quiet. There was somebody in the comments section that talked about the girl with the blonde hair, said she didn't say anything, but she was making a lot of faces. Well, I saw people when she did talk, because she didn't have a strong, in-your-face, domineering presence. People cut her off. They talked over her. And I don't know how she feels, but I often am like, I'm not going to do that. I don't argue. I'm not going to do that. So if I can't have a reasoned, leveled debate, I don't care. I don't really care about passion, but I cannot make my point. And I can't listen to you while talking over you. I just can't. And I believe that you can't disagree with somebody unless you understand them. So I really want to be able to understand. I can't understand you if I'm talking over you at the same time. So those are the things I would just say. Where am I at with my time? Those are the things that kind of stood out right away. I want to go back to me talking about the younger version of me. No, I want to end there. I hope I don't forget I want to say something else. Okay, so there are 2 points that I want to make in my 7 minutes remaining. I want to talk about the idea of belonging or being ostracized as a black person when you are when you are a minority, you're a black minority amongst black people. So I want to that's a point. And then I want to come back and talk about the younger me in terms of my politics and how my politics as I'm older, and how in this current political cycle, presidential cycle for office, 2024, how I feel like the campaigning of the Democratic Party this season represent me more politically than the campaign season of 2020. I don't know if I have a lot of time to talk about it. Anyway, so I want to talk about belonging. There was so much kinship that I had with the Black conservatives. Like, I didn't agree with a lot of what they said in terms of my current state. Like I said, when I was younger, I would have agreed with a lot. But currently, where I'm at now, I'm 53 years old, which I don't think they talked about age. Like, they didn't, I didn't see them factoring in age. I thought they did a really good job at offering diversity. I think you had 3 queer people represented. And I know there was this debate about language, about I'm not LGBTQ, I'm gay, or I'm this, or I'm that. And I thought, wow, you don't often get this opportunity to see Black diversity within the LGBTQIA community. So I really love that. But I don't. They didn't reference age. I think somebody talked about their grandmother or something, and the girl with the braids, like, so I'm supposed to be paying for your grandmama. I was like, damn. But anyway, so I don't think they talk about age, but this idea of belonging and what happens when you don't think like the masses. And I do agree that the people who are supposed tolerant and supposed to be inclusive can be extremely harmful when you don't represent a set of values that they hold to be true. So there are certain values that allow them. Inclusion as a value is only inclusion when it also pairs up with the least of these. So it really should be inclusion for the least of these, but not inclusion for people who are privileged, right? So it's like 2 values that are coming together, but they don't talk about both of those values. They only talk about one. They talk about inclusion. And then they may talk about the least of these separate, but oftentimes their inclusion is really about the least of these. I don't know if that makes sense. But anyway, so I have been on the receiving end of that, and I don't identify as a conservative. I will say I think you could make an argument that I'm moderate, but I'm left of moderate. I'm not even right of moderate. So it has been very hurtful for me when I have been charged by progressives. White progressives don't bother me, but I was only hit by a Black progressive one time, and it was brutal. She dragged me. Oh my gosh, she dragged me. I cried so hard. I mean, I snot cried. You know what I mean? Like, because this is what makes me different from a lot of the conservatives in that conversation. While I might understand I like the idea of the Black conservatives, like, hey, don't make me the victim. Don't say I can't compete. Like, I like those concepts. Yet, I also still believe and I also don't want to be, don't limit me to the collective. That's not fair. I agree with that. Don't limit me to the collective. Don't make me a victim. Don't delimit what I'm able to do. Like, all of those things that they were saying, I still agree with. Those are themes that I had when I was younger. I still hold them to be true now. Except this is the difference. I feel that if I make it, I want to help other people make it. Other people who look like me, who live like me. Like, this idea of complete competition. Yeah, I want to compete, but I also want to help out. I don't see anything wrong with helping out the least of these. Now, where I get in trouble with progressives is that while I want to help out the least of these, I don't want to cripple them. I don't want to put handcuffs on them. I don't want to create policies that disincentivize for them to be competitive, right? Yeah, I think competition can be good and bad. Like, competition is not all good and it's not all bad. So what I want to do, and as an educator, my desire is to help my students to be competitive, whether they're in a good space or a negative space in terms of if the competition is negative or positive. I want my students to be equipped to be competitive. And so I just don't understand. There was just like, it was almost like this anger, oh my God, I'm running out of time. This disdain for helping out, And so anyway, I got to do a part 2. I guess I'm going to do a part 2. You guys, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you check me out on my website, yourinidom.wordpress.com. Check out my long form podcast, You're in Idom. But I'm coming back for part 2. It has been a pleasure hanging out with you. Until I come back, be well. Thanks. Bye-bye.